Good morning. What I thought I'd do today is show you how to do some painting. I've got 6 cards here. I'm going to just paint them as backgrounds to show you. Now these cards, Mom got me these at a thrift store. I've got like a huge stack of them. They're just a nice thin cardboard, but they do have a slit in them, I guess, from where you're supposed to put the tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a piece of masking tape to cover that up. So I'm going to do that on all of them, and I'll be right back. Okay, so they're all taped. So what I'm going to do now is take my little jar of gesso and just paint them. And I find it the easiest to actually just kind of hold it and just paint it. What the gesso is going to do is kind of seal the paper, because paper is so absorbent. It's a primer. It gets the paper ready, or the canvas, or it's what I used on the leather of my shoes before I painted them. It's just an art primer, and I did give you some, so it's always a good thing to do this. So what I'm going to do, and it dries pretty quickly too. I'm going to paint the front and the back of all of these, and I'll be right back. Alright, so they're all gessoed, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some paint out on this little tile I have here. I've picked out some paints that are in the blue and green range. I've got turquoise, metallic blue, lime green, yellow, and a dark bright blue. When you're mixing wet paint, kind of a rule of thumb is you got your color wheel, so any 5, 3 to 5 that are side by side, or any 2 that are side by side, they're going to mix. They mix all right. They'll play well together. If I turn this around, I can get green to violet because it's got blue in it, and it would work. But if I've got across the thing like blue and orange, no, blue and orange mixed together are going to make mud. Red and green mixed together, or red and any of the 3 that are kind of down from it, you're going to make mud. Because the thing is, your primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. Red, blue, and yellow, you mix them together, you're going to get various shades of muddy brown to black depending on the ratio of which color you've used. So if you go opposite, you're basically mixing blue, red, and yellow, because red and yellow make orange, and you're going to have mud. So when they're dry, it's great. Orange and blue can look fantastic together. But if you're mixing wet paint, you want to stick to the rule of 5. Don't go more than 5 on the color wheel, or you're just going to get mud. Anyway, that's my little color theory speech. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a dab of each color on here. And I'm using all kinds of paint. Some are cheap dollar store paint. I think they're all pretty much dollar store paint. But you can use like your good, the Liquitex ones that you get at Michael's. It doesn't really matter. It's all gonna work. So I'll put a bit yellow, and then I've got my dark blue. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take my palette knife, which is this thing here, just because it's kind of like a butter knife, because what I'm going to be doing basically is picking up the paint and spreading it on these cards like I was buttering a piece of toast. So I'm just going to dip the palette knife in the paint, so I pick up some of each, and I'm just going to spread it on like I'm spreading toast. Doesn't really matter which way you're going. I'm just filling up. Now I could I could lay it, actually it's probably better if I lay it down. So I'm just gonna, and this is just my first layer. So put that down, take another card, dip it, run it down. I'm getting some of each color. I can go sideways on it. It really doesn't matter. You just get those corners. You're just putting your initial layer down. And you can see what's happening is as I pick these up and spread them on the card, they are mixing together because they're all wet, of course. And I'm actually seeing I probably, it's predominantly green. I'm not getting a lot of blue in it because it's the yellow. It's the yellow that's mixing with my blue that's making green. But like I said, it's just my first layer, so I don't really care. If I want to add more of a different color and change it to more blue, all I gotta do is dry it, and I can do that. I think I might have to put some more paint down. Yeah, see, now I'm getting really green here. So I'm going to throw my dark blue down and my turquoise. And I'll just work with those two for the last bit. Again, I'm just putting paint on my palette knife and scraping it on. And I can still see the 50 through it, the writing on the tag, and that's okay. It's either going to get covered up when I put future layers on, or it'll show through. Don't matter. Either way is good. It's all good. So just scrape that on there. Alright, so now I've got 6 cards that are painted. So I'm just going to let them dry, so I'll just pause it here and I'll come back, I'll clean up and I'll come back when they're all dry. Okay, so I've cleaned up and dried these off. They're still a bit damp in spots, but it's no big deal. Anyway, I can see by looking at these, get more in frame here. The one I like the best so far is this one, because it has the most of the dark blue and the yellow in it. So I can see that, you know, the dark blue and the yellow kind of make it look nice. So what I'm going to do is add some more dark blue to the rest of these. And this time I'm using a different palette knife. This one I was using before. Again, it could be more like spreading butter on bread. So, you know, it was broad and cover these really easy. This one is a different angle. So when I pick up the paint, I'm going to be working it off a small edge, so I can be more precise about where I'm putting it. So I'm going to put some blue down. Probably too much, but yeah, story of my life. And just dab it in. I'm just going to just drag some dark blue onto some of these. Just a bit. And I got a fight going on. Excuse me, I got to let them out the back door. Alright, I'm back. And it's still, yep, camera's still on. Alright, so I'm just adding some dark blue here and there to just randomly, don't really matter. I could actually go the other way, get a different look. I can pick it up if that makes it easier. And of course, you don't have to do this on cards. You can do it on a bigger piece of paper or canvas. Doesn't matter. See, now I've got the dark blue on the rest. I'm looking at this one going, it could use some more too. So I can put some more in there. Just random. And so maybe a bit more on this one. Yeah, this one you can't even see any yellow, so that definitely is going to get some yellow when I bring out the yellow. Just randomly. And then you just kind of look at them and you just sort of go, okay, where does it look like it could, I'm sorry if there's glare, you know, where does it look like I could put more blue on? Just, yeah. Put some on the edge there. Put some down here. All right, so I'm going to dry these off and I'll be right back. All right, so I've dried that blue. See, why I dried the blue, I just broke this thing. I didn't have to because the yellow and blue would mix, but what I'm wanting to avoid is getting more green. So I wanted to get the yellow on there without it mixing with the blue and making green, so I dried them off. Now I'm using a different palette knife again here. This is a little tiny guy. Same principle as the other one. You use it like a knife, or like you're putting butter on. I'm just using it because it's little, and I'm getting to the point where I'm just wanting to put little bits of color on things. So I'm just wanting to put some splotches of yellow. Oh, that was way too much. That's okay. It will. The thing I've found, you know, I look at some of the stuff that people are doing, and one of the things I've come to realize that sometimes you give up on something too soon. And this one lady, I don't know if I told you about this before, but she had a good point. Like she was talking about, you know, how she was doing the painting, and she said everything you do, whether it's you know, something random like this, or, you know, every piece of art, it's going to go through a stage where it's just ugly, and it's just because it's not finished yet, and you just have to keep. The more you add, the more depth something gets. You know, because when we're finished here, I'm going to start going on to these with some things to make marks, like bubble wrap and whatnot, and you'll just see that it. You just keep adding stuff. I think what I'm going to do now that, you know, this is all very. You know, yellow and green and blue. Well, I don't even have to wait for the yellow to dry. It might be interesting if I don't. See, if I introduce some red now and start mixing with the yellow, I'm going to get a bit of oranges. And because the blue and the green paint is dry, the orange, red and orange will not mix with it. So they'll be nice. They'll maintain they'll mix with each other, but they won't mix with the green and make ickiness. So I'm just gonna pick up some red and just not great, but I'm trying to be more delicate. I don't really want so much red on it. I just want to put some highlights. I'm just going to mix those up a bit to get more definite orange going. I'm not really getting. I don't know if I really like this palette knife. I think I can go to another one. Another one I have. Palette knives are actually pretty cheap, and it's nice to have a variety. This one's just a different, again, and you can just use it to kind of drag color on. That little one was just too, I don't know, didn't do it for me. See, now I'm running out of paint, so I'm just going to grab what I've got and just put it here and there. Remember, it's just background. This is once we start adding other layers with stamping stuff and whatnot, and then, you know, getting, you know, maybe some collage on it and working up, what we're working up to is what they call the focal point. Like right now, this is your focal point because it's all you're seeing right now, but it's not the end. This is all going to recede into the background. This is just background. And once you put like your flower or your picture of your lady or your whatever you're going to put on here, even if you were to paint something on here, because it's acrylic, of course, you could paint over it, or you might gesso out a spot to give yourself a white background to paint something onto it. You can do, there's just endless what you can do. Anyway, so that's the next layer on it, is the adding that bit of red. And so I'm going to turn it off and clean up and have a little think about what I'm going to do next, and I'll be right back. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to use stamps or anything because I know that you don't have like a huge stash of stamps and whatnot. Basically, there's all kinds of stuff you can use to use paint to make marks. One is bubble wrap. Bubble wrap's awesome. You want to get the bubble wrap, though, that's not sealed on both sides. Some of the stuff from Amazon, the envelopes you get from Amazon, they've got that piece of plastic on both sides, so the bubbles don't actually stick up separately. So if you try and stamp with them, it doesn't really work. The other thing is just shelf liner. You can use that. It makes nice marks. Piece of cardboard with one layer stripped off. It just makes nice lines. This is just some cheap, that plastic. It's for needlework. You can get it little pieces at the dollar store for $1. You can, at thrift stores, you can often find this stuff. And this is, it's basically just cut from a cheap silicone pot holder that I got. And in fact, that's kind of a big piece. I'm actually going to cut it into 2 smaller pieces so it's easy to hold and tap down. I also have one this one's hexagons. I have one that's squares, and it's nice too. I'm just not quite sure where it is at the moment. Anyway, I'll zoom back out, and I thought I would just, oh, and the other thing, this is just a pill bottle, or it's a top off something. I've got a whole selection of pill bottles, whatever, all kinds of caps, different sizes, circles. It makes nice circles. They're kind of fun. So first thing I'm going to use is a little bit of white. So I'm just going to put a smudge of white down, and then I'm going to take my palette knife and just spread it out a bit so I can dip my things into it and pick up. So I'm just going to use a piece of cardboard first. So basically, I just take it and dip it in the paint and smooch it down. And I just put them any way I want. Just get some white lines happening on these pages. That's the paint will dry on it and you can use it again. It's, you don't have to bother cleaning it or anything. So I'm going to take my little pot holder thing and just dip it and just add some random hexagons, and this one I will wipe off onto that wet rag I have sitting there. I'm probably, because I'm explaining this, I'm probably going to use more little marky things than I normally would, but you know, I just want to show you the different things that you can do and how you just get different. So anything that you see that goes, that's an interesting pattern, dip it in paint. I guess the only thing is, you know, kitchen stuff. A lot of kitchen stuff can do a really cool job, but you know, you don't want to, after you've used it for this, of course, you don't want to take it back into your kitchen, so you don't use it unless you want to just keep it in your art room. And then we've just got a little bit of paint left on here, so I'm just going to top it off by doing some bubbles. And what I'm going to do after this is go in with some black, and that'll change things again. So we're just adding and adding and adding layers. So we're done there. But when I do the black, I think I will do a, let's wipe that off. These little tiles are kind of cool. And the nice thing about using the palette knives too is they just clean off with a wet rag. And these ceramic tiles make nice little paint palettes because they clean off real easy, and they're like dirt cheap. They're not even $1 when you get them at Rona and stuff. Here's my black square. So I think for the black, what we'll do is we'll do some of the squares. You can see this one, it's the same, it's a pot holder. I've just cut the border off, cut it into pieces. We'll use the black, we'll use the squares, and we'll use, what else was I going to, oh, see, it's gone already. What a loser. All right, I'll remember. So I can put a bit of black paint down. And spread it out. And just add some black. And I could have dried the white off in between, but with what I'm doing here, I'm not mixing colors, I'm just dabbing it down. So the color's only going to mix if you're rubbing them together. So there's that. Oh, right. Yes, I was going to use the circles. That's what I was going to do. Where'd my thingy go? So I'm just going to kind of scrape that back into, I can always use more black paint, I guess. So I'm just going to run my circle thing in there and just press it down. And I'm not overly concerned that it fits completely on the card because it doesn't matter. It's actually kind of nice if you've got circles coming off the edge. It's kind of fun. I'm just going to put more paint down. Smooch it into a schmiggly on there. And you know, I'm not really concerned about the fact that, oh, that one's kind of schmecked. That's all right. You know, that they're not perfect, and you know, parts of them are thick and thin. That just adds to it. It just all adds to it. And see, you can see now they're finally starting to get interesting. These pieces now you're starting to see, like, you know, that depth in them. That's kind of cool. And I could, you know, bring some of my rubber stamps and plastic stamps in. But like I said, I kind of want to do this with materials that you probably have or can easily get. You don't need to have 6 million rubber stamps to do a nice job. You can do all sorts of things with just making marks with random things that you just find in your house. So, just going to let those dry, and I'm just going to have a bit of a think again and think about what I'm going to do next. Okay, I know what I'm going to use next. You gave me this that black Japanese ink. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to spray it. Oh, great, the little thing came off. That's all right, no problem. I've actually got some little cheap eyedropper things. I got these at the dollar store. So basically, I'm going to take some ink and I'm just going to run it along the edge and just tap it so that it drips down. Just making drips that go down the page. So we'll do that on all of them. Just run some ink. And you can get it started by, flicking it a bit, and then it'll give it a channel to go down. Oops, that was a bit much. But it's got bubbles, you can pop them. What is on there? All right. So yeah, you're just getting some ink drips, which is kind of interesting. It's just all about adding interest, right? You can use, you can buy cheap ink and do this. You can do this with fluid, what do you call it? You can buy different weights, different thicknesses of acrylic paint. You can actually buy acrylic ink. It's acrylic paint. It dries permanent, but it's fluid, like ink, but it's highly pigmented. Like you could add water to acrylic paint and get the same, but by adding the water, you're diluting it, so you're weakening the color, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But just know going in that if you start adding water, you're going to make the color a little bit paler. That's all. And then you've got, on the other side of things, you've got the heavy body paints. So kind of in a nutshell, like this basic stuff, the Liquitex Basics, or the Michaels brand, the Artist Loft Michaels brand. Any acrylic paint that's in a tube is usually a thicker paint. It's not going to flow and run. The ones you get in the little bottles here, like from the dollar store, Michaels or whatever, you can hear that they're more liquidy, and they will run more, but they still aren't. They're still thicker than ink would be. You can buy products that will thin your paints down without diluting the pigment, but they're actually pretty expensive, and it's probably, that's the kind of stuff you would buy at the serious art stores and stuff, and it's no point. You can just buy ink. Ink is cheap. You can get it in different colors. Anyway, I'm just going to dry these off with my heat gun, and I'll be right back. Okay, there's just a couple minutes before this thing switches, so I'm just going to say goodbye because it's going to go into another video.